Good morning, boys and girls. Thank you all for coming here today, and I would like to also thank the St. Augustine's Primary School staff members, everyone for allowing me this time to speak to you this morning. Early on today, I had a chance to speak to the grade 3s of this wonderful school, and I must say that they've shown great hospitality. And I really want to speak to you guys, the grade 6s and 7s, because you guys are on the cusp of your high school years. Now, primary school is a great time. I was there too. I enjoyed my primary school years. When you get to high school, it's a whole different ball game. So I want to encourage all of you to enjoy the time that you have now in primary school. Yes, at times, it may seem that the teachers are strict, your rules are stringent, there's a lot of homework, a lot of assignments, a lot of things you have to learn, but at the end of the day, trust me, they are all for your better good. I was sitting in the same position as all of you as well. At times, there were some teachers that I didn't like personally, there was some homework that I didn't like to do personally, but you know what? I didn't do anything. I stuck through it all, I behaved myself, I did all my work, and today I can stand before you as a successful person because it was because of the teachers and because of what I learned in school, both primary and high school, that made me a better person than I am today. Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Naushad Khan, and I'm a published author and entrepreneur. But I wasn't always like this. This doesn't happen overnight. This happened over a lot of years of trials and tribulations that I'm going to explain to all of you, and I hope that by the time I'm done speaking to you guys, you would have gained something out of what I have told you. You would have gained some knowledge, some motivation and inspiration from the story that I'm about to tell all of you. My story didn't just begin in primary school. My story began even before I had even begun my schooling career. At the age of 5 years old, I went with my parents to a library. How many of you here are members of the library? That's good, quite a lot of you, and I hope that those of you who are not members of the library will go on to become members of the library after you hear what I've had to say to all of you this morning. Now, my story begins in the library. I was 5 years old, my parents took me to the library and they applied for a library card, not just for myself, but for each of them as well. So, the rule is that on a single library card, you're allowed to borrow up to 8 books for up to a period of 2 weeks. However, thanks to my parents' friendliness with the librarians and, of course, my exuberance and want for reading, I was allowed to borrow up to 24 books at a time because obviously, who knows what is 8 times 3? 24. So I was allowed to borrow up to 24 books, but I would not need the whole 2 weeks to read a book. Within a period of 1 week, all 24 of those books would have been read and ready to be returned to the library, only for me to leave the library with yet another set of 24 books, which I would then again take another 1 week to read. So I can tell you guys some of my favorite library books growing up, and those of you who are members of the library or will become members of the library can head over to any library and pick up these books from your nearest library. The nearest libraries to this school that I know of are the Asheville Library, there by the David Landau Hall in the Asheville area, and then you have the Musgrave Library in the Glenwood area, where the spa is in the Glenwood Village Mall. My favorite books growing up were The Adventures of Tintin, The Adventures of Asterix and Obelix, but as I got older, I started reading more and more mature books. So as a young child, I enjoyed reading books such as, this is a very popular one, most of you may know it, those who have been to the library, The Diary of a Wimpy Kid, went on to become a good motion picture later on, but it was a book at first. And my favorite book of all time was Hover Car Racer by Matthew Riley. A really good book, which actually was the book that really inspired me to write my very first published book, Race Champ Part 1, The Oval Tar, which, as the title suggests, is the first part in what's said to be a trilogy. Who here knows what a trilogy is? It is a set of 3 books, 3 stories as one. So that is what a trilogy is. Now, being at 5 years old, reading so much and so much and so much, my mind on its own just started conjuring up ideas. Because you have to understand that when I was reading so much, I was reading both fiction and non-fiction books. Now, with non-fiction books, you gain a lot of knowledge, you learn a lot of things. However, with fiction books, not only do you also learn a lot of things, but you also increase your vocabulary, which is essential for you guys at school, especially during your English classes. You want to increase your vocab, you want to learn more words, you want to learn better how to use capital letters, punctuation, sentence structure, everything you can learn from reading a book, even if it's a fiction book. Because sometimes when you're reading, you'll come across certain words that you don't understand, but you don't have to sit there and not know what the word is. You can ask a teacher, ask your parents, consult with a dictionary, or what the popular form of method is now, obviously, they all say Google it. So you Google it, you learn how to pronounce the word, you know what it means, you know how to use it, and if you read on a consistent basis, you will come across that word even more times, more often than not. You'll come across the same word, and you learn how to better use it, how it's used more often, how to better construct sentences. Sometimes when you're writing English essays or whatever it is now, in primary school and in high school, it increases your vocabulary. It allows you to write stories, write essays, do better in school. So reading is the foundation of all of that. Now, like I was saying, I read so much that my mind on its own just started conjuring and coming up with ideas on itself. So I grabbed a pencil, a pen, and any scrap piece of paper I could find, and already at the age of 5 years old, I'm already writing stories of my own imagination that would just come up in my head. But you know, when you're 5 years old, you come up with childish ideas. So my very first story ideas was kids going on a voyage to space, or talking dinosaurs, or any number of ridiculous ideas that my mind would just come up on its own with. But as I matured and I got older, I started writing more mature ideas. At the age of 10, I shocked everybody when I started writing a Western novel. Who here knows what a Western novel is? Basically, it's like your Wild Wild West, your cowboys and red Indians, that kind of stories. So for a 10-year-old to be writing a Western novel at that time was kind of unheard of. And yes, and many times, because I was in school during free periods, I would grab a pen and paper and just be writing stories down. I got made fun of a lot. More so in high school than primary school. Now don't get me wrong, I love both my primary school and my high school, but you do at times get one or two children in your classroom, and I'm sure some of you can relate, who would mock, tease, make fun of other kids, just because they're a little bit different, because they don't fall into the mold, because of their perception of who they are and where they come from and what it is they do. So sometimes you come across someone who may be a little bit different than you. Maybe he has different dreams and aspirations. A lot of you are sitting here probably knowing what you want to do after school. Some of you may not know yet, but trust me, by the time you get to high school, you will know what it is you want to achieve in your life. So whether that be a doctor, a lawyer, an engineer, or even an entrepreneur, or a published author like myself, whatever it is you want to be, you can achieve it. Don't let anyone stop you just because of their perceptions, just because you feel like you need to fall into line, or you need to be liked by certain people. Because at the end of the day, those people are not always going to be there. Today I'm standing here in front of you as a successful entrepreneur and a published author. And those who made fun of me, they're not here right now. They're working regular jobs. Some of them have studied, they've gone through university, and they're still job searching. So don't ever feel like you have to fall into line with someone just because you're being mocked or teased. Ignore the naysayers, ignore the haters, pursue what you want to pursue, do what you want to do, because at the end of the day, it's going to benefit you and not them. So I went into my high school years, and at the age of 17 years old, I believe it was the December 2011 holidays, when I came up with the idea of Race Champ. And how that idea came about was actually from Hover Car Racer by Matthew Riley, my favorite book of all time. It's more like a 400 to 500 page book, which I've read like 3 or 4 times, but it conjured up my mind to come up with an idea of my own. Now, as a 17-year-old teenager, I was into cars, I was into racing. Sometimes I would even hear illegal drag racing that would happen on our roads, a few roads away from where I live. But Race Champ follows the story of legal racing, not the illegal street racing racing, but the legal circuit racing that you get. So I came up with this idea, and in a lot of ways, Race Champ mirrored my real life, because the story of Race Champ goes like this. There's a young man by the name of Jason Woods who wants nothing more than to be a pro racer in the world racing scene. So he starts where anybody else would start off, the Oval Tar, which is an independent rookie racing circuit where all young racers get their start. And he has to race up the ranks, get himself to the top of there so that some manager, big league manager or agent will pick him up and take him into the world racing scene. Now along the way he meets a lot of foes, a lot of friends and enemies, but he also learns a lot of lessons along the way. And some of the lessons I'm going to impart to you today as I go through the story and my story as well. So when I wrote Race Champ, it was originally a 3-part story. I originally wrote it as one story, and it turned out to be as thick as this book over here. Then I realized it's a bit too big, so allow me to cut it up into 3 parts. So I cut it up into 3 parts, and the next year I went back, I completed my matric, and then after matric I got a job, and then started the long and arduous journey into trying to get published. So for 8 years, I went from publisher to publisher, pillar to post, trying to get published. And everyone would turn me down. For one reason or the other, I would get turned down and rejected. But what kept me going was my passion, my wanting to achieve what I wanted to achieve, and the story of J.K. Rowling. Who here knows who J.K. Rowling is? Yes, who here knows who Harry Potter is? All of you, fantastic. Harry Potter is a very famous movie franchise, but before it was a movie franchise, it was a series of books. There have been about, I believe, maybe 7 or 8 Harry Potter movies and about 7 Harry Potter books in the mainframe franchise series. So J.K. Rowling wrote Harry Potter, and she approached 13 different publishers. 12 times she submitted a manuscript, and 12 times she was knocked down and rejected, because the publishers just didn't want to publish her story. They didn't see, the value behind it. They didn't see, the publicity or the marketing of such a story. However, the 13th publisher is the one that said, yes, we're going to publish you, and she got published. So with that in the back of my mind, I said to myself, you know what, it doesn't matter. I'm going to keep going forward. I don't care how many times I'm told no. I'm going to keep going, and I'm going to keep breaking through until I get a yes. And that's exactly what I did, because after 8 years, I finally got the one yes I was looking for. And that's the thing in life. You can get 10 responses, 9 of them can be no's, and 1 of them can be yes. And that one yes is all you need to get your foot in the door. And that's exactly what I did. Once I finally found a publisher who was willing to publish me, I went to them, got the book edited, proofread, we did the cover design, and this is something also I want to bring up to you guys. Who here knows of the saying, you don't judge a book by its cover? Yes. That is a very true saying, because you don't always judge a book don't judge someone just by the appearance of their looks. However, when coming up with the cover design for Race Champ, I wanted to change the narrative completely. That's what inspired me to come up with that cover right there. Because I believe when you're reading a book, you should judge a book, a physical book, by its cover, because what you see on the cover should be what you get inside. It's no use you're looking at a bright, beautiful cover with all of these colors and bright creatures and whatever, and inside the book has nothing to do with it at all. Race Champ, what you see on the cover is exactly what you get. You see cars, you see championship belts, you see bikes. All of that is inside of that book, Race Champ. So what you get on the cover is what is exactly inside the book. So with Race Champ, you can judge this book by its cover. So we had done the cover design, we had done everything. We were just about to get ready to go to the printing process rather, to finally get my book in a printable form. And this happened in the March of 2020. Now who knows something very critical that happened towards the end of March 2020? It involves the President Cyril Ramaphosa, a pandemic, yes. The coronavirus, technically known as COVID-19, had struck the globe. And it was just at the time that we were about to go to the printing of my book. And here one Monday night, President of South Africa, Cyril Ramaphosa, comes on the screen and says, my fellow South Africans, we're going into a lockdown for 21 days, which ended up becoming 5 weeks. So apparently 21 days is 5 weeks, I didn't know that. But anyways, that was a crushing moment. It was a crushing blow because I had finally reached the precipice. I had finally reached the point where I was like, yes, I'm getting my book out there after 8 years, and my whole world comes crumbling down because everything shut down. Aside from essential services, every single industry in the country was shut down, and that includes printers. So for 3 months I sat at home with my dreams being crushed. But you know what? That's when I learned something. I learned something that I had been trying to learn for the last 8 years of my life, and I finally grasped at that point was patience is a virtue. Because after 3 months, the world started opening up again a little bit, and that included the printers. And my book finally went into print at the end of June 2020. And in September of 2020, my book, Race Champ Part 1, The Oval Tower, was officially published as a book. And on the 7th of November 2020 was a day I will never forget, because that was the day I had my very first book launch in my ex-primary school. And it was a glorious moment because it was a school where I discovered my talent for writing. 3 teachers in particular always supported me in wanting to be a writer. And here I am walking back into the school, meeting those same 3 teachers and thanking them and telling them, thank you for believing in me. My book is officially being launched, and I choose this school to have my book launched in. Now, a lot of you are sitting here at this level, grade 6. And trust me, it may not be soon, but many years from now, you may one day walk back into this school as a successful person. Maybe not as an author, maybe not as an entrepreneur, maybe as something else. Standing on this very stage, presenting to another whole new generation of grade 6s who will also be on the cusp of their high school years and entering into their future. And you will be the same in the position that I am right now. You will be successful, but it will only happen if you keep going forward. If you keep believing in yourself, keep believing what you want to do is what you want to do, and you don't let anybody stop you, no matter who they are. Doesn't matter if you don't fit into their mold. Doesn't matter if maybe there's certain subjects you don't like. Just put your head down, learn, study, write the tests, get over it, because eventually you will be standing up on the stage one day telling your success story to another generation of learners. So after having my book launched in my primary school with much fanfare, much pomp and glory, my face was everywhere. It was in newspapers, magazines, online, social media, and it caught the eye of other budding authors who also were struggling to be published. And at the time I thought I was just 1 in a million stat of those writers who didn't get published. But I realized I wasn't just the one and off. There were many other authors out there who also wanted to get published, but just didn't know how, or just didn't know how to get there. So I was approached at first by this author right here, Mohammed Zahir. He's the author of the book The Map to Elijah. It was the very first book I ever published. And he approached me and said, I've seen you get published. Can you help me get published? And that's when it struck my mind, because for 8 years prior, I'd say since 2015, I was running a small little, well, what you youngsters would call nowadays a side hustle. I considered it a side business called multi-marketing, which is a holding company for various of my other business interests, which included web design and logo design. Now, I'm not somebody who went to college to study. Web design and logo design and graphic designing is just something that I self-taught myself how to do. I educated my own self on how to do it. So I was able to assist other businesses in designing their websites, their logos, their online presence. I even assisted them with marketing campaigns and rollout of marketing campaigns. So I decided, there's an opportunity here for a publishing wing. So taking that into account that I now had an opportunity, I opened up a publishing wing, which helped other authors get published just like myself. So I can now stand before you as a successful entrepreneur. I've published authors from around the country and around the globe. My first author was one from Oakport, Mohammed Zahir. My other author from a little town called Pennington on the south coast of Durban, Kim Bagshaw. She wrote this 612-page book called William. which took me 5 months to edit and proofread. But like I said, patience is the virtue. You wait long enough, you get everything you ever wanted and more. So I published those books. I even assisted people from Saudi Arabia, Dubai, Turkey, Malaysia. I'm even in the works with someone in Australia and the United States in helping them get their books published and distributed in South Africa. Now in the digital age, anything is possible. You can reach out to anybody around the globe, so it does make publishing people from around the world a lot easier. So yes, while technology is the here and the now, books and physical books are still very much a common thing in the world today. Now, that is my story of how I became a successful published author and entrepreneur. Now, I'm not just a one-shot wonder or just one in a million. There are millions of successful people out there who have achieved because they were readers. For example, who here knows who is Elon Musk? Yes, the owner of Tesla and SpaceX. He was a man who was born in South Africa but made a success of himself now in the United States. He once said that he read up to 4 books per week. And that's Elon Musk. A reader by nature has become such a successful person. As of right now, he is the most richest man in the world. The former most richest man in the world, I believe, was Warren Buffett. But before that, Jeff Bezos. Before that, Bill Gates. Everyone knows who Bill Gates is, I'm pretty sure. Was once the richest man in the world, the owner of Microsoft. He used to read up to 48 books per month while he was the richest man in the world. So for a man who's that busy running a multi-billion-dollar industry, still has time every month to read up to 48 books is a testament. So a lot of you may be sitting here today being like, well, Mr. Khan, you read 24 books in a week, but I'm in primary school. I have homework to do. I have chores to do when I get home. I still want to play with my friends outside. There's still things that I want to do. How can I incorporate reading into my everyday life? Now, I'm not saying you should read up to 24 books a week. You can start off just by reading a few pages a day. So those of you who aren't members of the library, I advise you to go get a library card. And those of you who are members, congratulations, you don't have to go and get a library card, you already have one. Go to the library, borrow up to 8 books, or even 4 books. You don't have to borrow up to 8 books. And I'm not saying you should read them in 1 week, you have a 2-week period. How can you incorporate reading in your everyday life? There's 2 ways to do it, and I'll share those 2 things with you right here, right now. The first way, you obviously have those books with you at your home because you borrowed them and brought them home. In the morning, when you get up, and this is something a lot of people are guilty of. When they get up in the morning, the first thing they want to do is grab their phones, and they want to go on social media, they want to check emails, they want to react to memes on social media, and 1 hour of your morning that you just woke up has gone just like that because of you're just sitting on your phone. And that's not good because your eyes now have just not adapted to the night light, they've adapted to a big bright light in front of you. That's not good. What I would advise is have a little bedside lamp or lantern or even a candle. If you don't have access to lights, you can use a candle, lantern, whatever it is. Light it up, open up a book, wherever it is. The library will provide you with bookmarks so you can easily pick up where you left off. Read at least 2 pages. 2 pages, back to back. That'll automatically start your mind opening up and you'll be ready for the day. The second way of doing it, and this is the most effective way, is in the evening before you go to sleep. So after you've done all your homework, you've done all your house chores, you've obviously played with all your friends outside during the day, you're at home in the evening, you're on your bed, open up your book, read at least 4 pages back to back. That's it, just 4 pages to start off. Trust me, by the end of this exercise, you will be starting to read 8 pages, then 10 pages, and then a whole chapter, then 2 chapters. Trust me, you will have it. You may not think of it right now, but the constant routine of doing it, eventually you will end up doing more and more and more, and you'll become successful because why? Your vocabulary is increasing, your usage of words, your usage of dialogues is increasing, your knowledge is increasing. If you're reading a non-fiction book, everything is just going up and up because you're reading and you're making it a part of your daily routine. So before I go on to read an excerpt from my book and I wrap it up for the day, does anybody have any questions? Okay, so I'm going to read an excerpt from my book over here, Race Champ Part 1, The Oval Tar. And I just want to show you guys a picture real quick. It's on the inside of the book. If you guys can see that, it's a picture of a car, alright? And it says, it's not the car that wins the race, it's the driver. And that is the biggest metaphor of Race Champ. Who here knows what a metaphor is? That's great. So I'm going to read you guys a little excerpt from my book. And I want you guys to take real notice of how I read the excerpt. Sometimes you'll be called up to the front of the class and you'll be asked to read an excerpt from the book by your teachers in the front of the classroom. And I want you guys to, when you're reading a book in front of the classroom or when you're at your desk, if you're reading, a book out, you have to read it like you want to read it. You must read it with expression, read it with changing your voice for every character. Read it like you want to read with expression, with passion. Don't read it like you're just trying to read it, like just to get through it. Read it because of the want of reading. Trust me, your reading, your pronunciation, everything about you will get better. Like I said, when you're reading a book, your vocabulary increases. And this is something I explained to the other class as well, is that sometimes when you're in English class, you want to know how to use nouns better, pronouns, your grammar, sentence structure, dialogue, punctuation, when and when not to use capital letters. All that can be achieved by constantly reading a book. Any book, it doesn't have to be my book, but in any book you read, you keep on reading constantly, make it a routine, and you'll know how, and you'll get better during your English classes. Sometimes you may sit there at your English class and you'll think to yourself, man, I don't really know why I'm learning all of this. Why is this teacher teaching me about pronouns or when to use an apostrophe? When am I going to use this in real life? And this goes through your maths classes as well. Sometimes you'll sit there and think, why is the teacher teaching me how to use board maths or how to use the theorem of Pythagoras? How is this going to affect me in later life? Trust me, I felt the same way. And today I can tell you that I now understand why those teachers taught me all those things, because I now edit books for a living. I now know when to use pronouns. I now know when apostrophe should and should not be. I'm running a business. I know because the teachers taught me how to add 15% VAT, percentages. So I was not the best in maths class, but I paid attention, I learned, and today I can run a successful business because I paid attention, I learned, repetition makes for greatness. As they say, practice makes perfect. So sometimes you may be thinking you're not learning anything, but trust me, you are learning something that you are going to use later on in later life. So let me read you a little passage now from my book, and I'll explain to you the biggest metaphor behind it's not the car that wins the race, it's the driver. So this excerpt comes from when Jason Woods is about to become the Oval Tar champion. He's about to participate in a race where the Oval Tar championship is on the line, and if he wins, he can become the new champion of the Oval Tar. And he encounters the former Oval Tar champion, a man who let go of the title because he was called up to the big leagues, the former champion, Stephen Myler. Jason turned around to see the former Oval Tar champion Stephen Myler standing there. "Stephen, what are you doing here?" "Just popped by to say hi," said Stephen. "Nicely right, Jason. What is it?" "Sasha and I built it," said Jason. "We call it the Golden Fleece. I hope you can win us a race tonight." "Looks nice, Jason. But let me give you a piece of advice that my brother once gave me," said Stephen. "It's not the car that wins the race. It's the driver. Just keep that in mind." Jason began to understand what Stephen meant and said, "I will." "Thanks, Stephen." "No problem," said Stephen. "I'll be watching you from the crowd and cheering you on, Jason. Good luck." "Thanks," replied Jason before Stephen turned and left the race's parking area. Now you notice how I read that with such expression, with passion, with want. I didn't read it like, "No problem," said Stephen. "I'll be watching you from the crowd and cheering you on, Jason. Good luck." "Thanks," replied Jason before Stephen turned and left the race's parking area. I didn't read it like that. I read it with passion, with expression. That is how you should be reading books out when you're reading them in front of the class. Now the biggest metaphor to come out of Race Champ is the fact that I use this metaphor of it's not the car that wins the race, it's the driver. What does that mean? For a second I want you to imagine what your goal is. Maybe you want to be a doctor, maybe a lawyer, maybe an engineer, maybe an entrepreneur, a businessman, a publisher author like myself, whatever it is you want to be. Envision that in your mind for a second. Now envision that goal as a car. You are the driver of that car. That's your goal. You are the dreamer. You have to take that car to the finish line. What is the finish line? Let's use the popular doctor analogy. To become a doctor, what do you need? PhD. And what is the reward for becoming a doctor and gaining a PhD? You get to help people. You save people's lives. And, of course, doctors earn a lot of money for saving people's lives, for helping people. Because obviously you earn money for solving problems. You don't just earn money because you want to. You earn money because you solve problems. So, for being a doctor, you have a PhD, you solve people's problems, you earn a lot of money. Your goal is to be a doctor, that's the car. You're the driver, you want to be the doctor. So you have to get into that goal, that car, and you have to be the physical driving force to drive yourself to the finish line, to get that PhD, to get that championship belt or that trophy, which is the reward, which is, obviously, becoming a doctor, saving people's lives, having a lot of money. That's the greater analogy behind Race Champ. It's not the car that wins the race, it's the driver, because you are the driver of your goal. You are the one who has to take that dream and drive it to the finish line. So, in order to become a success, like I said, I'm standing before you today as a published author and entrepreneur. Didn't happen overnight, didn't happen because of any miracles, it happened because of hard work, determination, persistence, perseverance. I did not give up, I was adamant, I really wanted what I wanted to achieve, and I didn't let anyone or anything stop me. I kept at it. At times, there were trials and tribulations, there were things I didn't like. For some of you right now, there are some subjects in school you don't like, there's some, let's be honest, some teachers you don't like. But trust me, those teachers that you don't like are the best teachers, because they are the ones who you will thank later on in life, because they have taught you the morals and good values that you need to succeed in this world. Because the world out there is a scary place. Like I said, primary school is all fun and games. You're going into high school soon, it's a whole different ball game. I can tell you because I've been there. You need to be prepped right now to get to where you need to be, because you need to become a success. So apply those rules I gave you guys, those 2 rules of how to become, add reading to your daily routine, and trust me, you'll get better at it, you'll be more equipped, not only for now, but into the future. And like I said, there's some subjects you don't like, trust me, you'll be using them later on in your life. You may not see it right now, but you will in the future, because to become a success tomorrow, you have to be a reader today. And that's why there's a saying. Who knows the saying? Readers are leaders. Readers are leaders. You read today, you will lead tomorrow. I hope the story has inspired all of you. And if there's any questions, I'll be taking them right now. But if not, I'd like to thank you all. And I hope and I wish you all the best of luck. Thank you. Any questions? Yes.
What is the longest word?
Sorry, I didn't hear you.
What's the longest word?
What's the longest word?
Well, I think the longest word that I know of, maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm right, is supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. Have you thought of a question yet? Yes, another question.
Sir, did you ever feel like you wanted to give up and just quit what you're doing?
Yes, there was many times where I wanted wanted to give up. In fact, there was a point where I decided, you know what, this is not going to happen. Let me just put my pen away, let me just put my book away. Who am I? Who am I? I'm just Naushad Khan from Durban, South Africa, I'm not some, Elon Musk or Bill Gates, Greatness is not for me. And yes, I almost gave up, but I'm glad I didn't. There was a series of events and a series of things that I kept at the back of my mind that told me, you know what? No, I shouldn't give up. I should keep going. So yes, there were times when I had doubts, I wanted to give up, but I'm glad I did not. Let's see. Yes, your question. It's actually, how do I explain it? It's like an extreme form of happiness, an extreme form of anything, basically. Like, you're saying, like, you could look at a car and see, like, wow, that car is supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. Yeah, that's, yes, you.
What is the meaning of that word?
I just explained it. It's a higher form of happiness or, accentuation. It feels amazing. It feels like a culmination of everything I ever wanted just coming to fruition. That's what it feels like. Yes.
What is the biggest book? What is the biggest book you've ever published or edited? Like the one that got the most amount of money or readers?
The biggest book I ever published was this book right here, 612 pages. Book called William. It took me 5 months to edit and proofread. And it actually won an award for Novel of the Year 2021. And it's a great achievement to have from multi-marketing. It's actually South Africa's first ever mainstream vampire tale set right here in Durban. So I know many of you are familiar with the Twilight series or Dracula, those kind of stuff. That's what that book is. That's the biggest book I've ever published. Yes. How many are? So far only one, because ever since I published the one book, I've just been so busy with other authors contacting me that I haven't had time to get around to my own, because I feel more happiness publishing other people's stuff than your own. They always say that, you get more joy and happiness doing things for others than for yourself. So yeah, so far it's only been one, but down the road, once I get the time, I'll obviously publish my other books. Yes. How do you become? You have to believe in what you want to accomplish. So, for example, I'm standing on stage in front of all of you right now. If I had done this 8 years ago, I'd be terrified. I'd have stage fright. I would be terrified of talking on stage in front of people. I know there's many of you out there who feel the same. You feel scared of public speaking, scared of just standing up on stage and talking. But like I said, I kept on doing it. You gotta make it a routine. Practice makes perfect. So you gotta keep on doing it, and then you gain confidence automatically. It's not just something that you can read about or something that you can do. It's your routine. You gotta just one day be like, I'm stepping on stage and I'm gonna speak, and just blank out everything in your mind. Just be like, there's no one there. I'm just talking to myself in a mirror. Practice makes perfect. That's how you gain confidence. Yes. Which library? You mean these books right here? Well, to be honest, the libraries right now, the municipal libraries, are trying to round up their funds to purchase my books. So we're in the works. It's going to be there soon, but you can find them at any major bookstore around the country. I've also donated some of my books to my ex-primary school and some of the other schools in the area. And, I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say this or not, but I'm hoping that my books someday will conjure up a resurgence of your own St. Augustine's primary school library. So once my books are in your school, I hope that I see a lot of you get library cards for the school and pick up copies of these books. Yes. I mean, how many pages is my book? Raise your hand. How many pages I have read in my entire life? Wow. Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious amount. Sorry, I can't hear what you're saying. I still can't hear you. I mean, that's an obvious answer. I put my book in first.
Yes. How much money do you make when you publish it?
How much money I make when I publish a book? That is a common question I get. Actually, I don't think you guys should be laughing. That's a really common question I get because every author I've ever come into contact with has asked me that one question. How much money does it cost? And to be honest with you, there's no set cost because every book is different. Because, say for example, this book is thin, right? This book is extremely thick. Which one do you think costs more to make? Obviously, the one that's thicker. So every book has its own cost. There's no like standard price for any book.
Yes, you.
Good Lord, I feel like I'm in a spelling bee. Let's see. Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. Yes. Can't hear what that is. I need you to speak a bit louder. You pull your mask down. Sorry? Do you have to go to a certain school to become an author? No. No, you don't. Like I said, I was writing from the age of 5, so no, there's no specific formal education that you have to go through. You just, I mean, there are workshops and schools out there that help you write better, but to become an author, there's no school in particular, no.
Someone else, Sean,
So far, about 7 books in total so far.
Let's go to the boys now. You.
Where did I get? From a dictionary when I was a kid. I read the book. But honestly, when you ask me right there how to spell the word, just in my head, I was like, okay, supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. I broke it up in my head, so I spelled it in parts. Yes, yes. Can't hear.
Which primary school did you
I attended Hartley Road Primary School. Between 2001 to 2007, I did grade 1 to 7 there. Sorry guys, I can't hear what you're saying.
How many alphabets are the long word?
How many letters are in supercalifragilisticexpialidocious? Good Lord. I really am in a spelling bee, aren't I? Let's see. Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. Say about 34 or 35. Sorry guys, I can't hear what you say. Yes, I do have more books that haven't been published. Of my own, I'd say there's about a box full at home. I actually kept all the stories that I wrote from the age of 5 in a little, like, well, not a little box, a big box, like one of those CTV packaging boxes. So yeah, there's a lot of books that haven't been published, but I'm hoping to publish it soon. And there are a lot of authors that are sitting in the pipeline. Like, when I go home, go back to my office this afternoon, I've got a whole lot of authors' books to edit, so there's a lot more coming up that haven't been published yet. Yes?
Can you find your post in YouTube? No, can you find
Can't hear you.
Oh. Can we find you on YouTube?
Yes, actually. This morning I recorded a session. This session right now is actually being recorded. I actually do the recording and editing myself. It'll be up on YouTube later this week, so you guys can find me on YouTube. It's Naushad Khan. Just search up Naushad Khan book. Naushad Khan, so Naushad Khan, Khan, book, B-O-O-K. You'll find me on YouTube. Yes. Can somebody tell me what the question was? I can't hear it. Wow, that's a tough one. We're looking at 24 books per week from the age of 5 till, how old am I now? 28? So, you do the math. Sorry guys, can you keep me down? I can hear the question. I think I answered that during my speech. My favorite book of all time is Car Racer by Matthew Riley. You'll find it in the Musgrave Library and the Ashford Library, from what I've seen. Yes.
So, are you married?
Now it's fine, I like personal questions. I'm going to answer that with N/A, not applicable. Sorry, I can't hear what you're saying. How do I feel when I meet other authors? It's sort of like being part of a fan club and you're meeting someone who has the same interests as you. It's that same kind of feeling you get, like meeting someone who has that same vibe as you. So yeah, that's how I feel. You've had your hand up for a while, yes. From the age of 5. I can't hear you.
What is the longest ever read except William?
Longest book I've ever read except William would be, I'm not sure if it's the longest book in the world, but it's the longest book I've read. Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix. And here's a little fun fact, that is actually the longest book in the entire Harry Potter series. One of the ladies. Do I get tired of reading? No. Only when I feel sleepy and I want to go to bed for that. To be honest, not that much. I'd say on my well, I've got 3 YouTube channels, so just understand that I'm running 3 different channels. So on my personal channel, I think I've got only like 66 subscribers currently. I'm hoping though that all these videos and all of you guys will become subscribers as well. My favorite? Easily Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. Only because of that contest. That was my favorite. wasn't a fan of Cedric. I'm a fan of, to be honest, and a lot of people, this is an unpopular opinion, I'm a fan of Draco Malfoy.